So this book is dark academia. There's some found family, there's betrayal, there's imperialism. I don't remember if you were told this at the very beginning or if you figure it out like shortly after. I mean, use your context clues, babe. And these bullies are not like your standard run-of-the-mill bullies. I think they're like super bullies. They're actually, truthfully, really genuinely devoid of souls. Hey there, it's Venus, not the planet, and today we're going to be talking about all the books that I read in January, February, and March. We're also going to talk about the books that I bought in those months. Unfortunately, one of those lists is longer than the other, and it's not the list it should be. So grab your beverage of choice. I have a peppermint matcha that I made this morning, and yes, it is in a used pasta jar sauce because sustainability. And let's get into it. So, in reading order, these 7 books that I've read so far this year are as follows. Good Girl, Bad Blood by Holly Jackson, As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson, Heaven by Miyako Kawakami, Babel by R.F. Kuang, Night Shift by Kiari Ladner, Paper Doll by Dylan Mulvaney, and The Atlas 6 by Olive E. Blake. The A Good Girl's Guide to Murder is a YA thriller mystery book series, and it also has a TV adaptation, only for the first book though, which is called A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Why did I have to think about that? It's literally what the book series is called. But I read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder last year and I gave it 4 stars. Once again, it's a YA book series. I don't read that much YA, however, I had a good time. I enjoyed it, and the twist, actually, it twisted me. I didn't see it coming in the way that it came. Good Girl, Bad Blood, I enjoyed it enough. It was kind of dragging for me personally until the end. The twist, once again, it twist, okay? The twist was twisting, and it like caught my attention back in. Truthfully, if the entire book felt like the first half of the book, I don't know if I would have read the 3rd book at all. But once again, the ending did kind of get me. It was just pissing me off. Like the actual, not the story, the individual characters were making me mad. Like really mad. Like their motivations were dumb. The things that they were saying were dumb. I feel like Holly Jackson had something that she wanted to do and she was going to make the characters do them, even if it didn't make that much sense. So for starters, a guy goes missing and he is like tangentially related to the main character of the book series, and her name's Pip. They're like, hey Pip, we know you like solved that murder last year. Can you help us out because my brother's missing? And mind you, this man has been missing for 24 hours, less than 24 hours, something like that. He's like 24, and she has a podcast, and the podcast is like really popular because she solved a murder last year. She gets on the podcast talking to his mom, and his mom's like, my son's a loser. He's got no friends. He's got a crush on this girl and she don't want him. He got no motivations in life. He's a dropout. Blah, blah, blah. And he's fat. So I understand, like, for the reasons of the book, why when he goes missing, he needs to be on the podcast. And, like, mind you, she's not filming a whole season of a podcast and releasing it at the end. She's releasing these in real time. So he's been gone, let's call it 14 hours. Mom gets on a podcast, dogs him out, upload it. Like, what if the man, because he's 24 years old, what if the man just wanted to have a staycation? What if he went camping and he comes back home to hear the podcast being like, yeah, my fat loser dropout son. Like, I just thought that was crazy. And then also, another thing that really got me was that Pip, once again, she's the main character, her mom worked with the guy. I'm forgetting his name right now. I think it's Jason. I don't think it's Jason. So Pip's mom worked with the missing guy, and Pip asked her earlier, like, did anything weird happen that day? She's like, no, honestly, nothing out of the ordinary. I don't have any details to give you that would have to do with his disappearance. And then later on in the book, she just casually mentions, on the day that he went missing, he tried to steal my credit card and was stealing money from me. And then when I confronted him about it, he was like, I'm so sorry. This is life or death. I wouldn't be doing this if this was life or death. Blah, blah, blah. And this is like, oh, his name is Jamie. Okay, anyway. So this is very out of Jamie's character. Like, he's not the kind of guy who's gonna walk into work and try to steal your money. So, and then he's telling you his life or death. And mind you, you're friends with his mom. Or like friendly at the very least. Me personally, if I was a mother and my son was like doing out of character things, tweaked out, talking about it's life or death, and I find out later that one of my friends didn't even tell me about it, knowing damn well he's missing, like, yeah, it just really pissed me off. It wasn't, the book wasn't bad, but everyone was just pissing me off the entire time. I rated it 3 stars. I still thought it was a good book, and mind you, remember, even if like I was like at a 2.5 the entire time, the ending brought me up to a 3 by the end. And for my personal rating system, a 3 is a good book. A 3 is a good book. It's just like a good book. I just reminded myself of my thoughts on the 3rd book, which is As Good as Dead. And most of the things that I had a problem with, I cannot share with you because they are like major spoilers to the book. But I can share one specific part that, once again, it kind of like feeds into the first, like from the last book, the problems that I had. Just like, whatever. So she has a younger brother named Josh. Early on in the book, he asks Pip and her boyfriend Ravi what the word pervert means. They explain that like a pervert is like a creep that likes to like watch people and be weird. So he goes, oh, so the man that's always outside of our house watching us, he's a perv? And instead of going, what man? Josh, what do you mean? What man has been standing outside of the house? Like, what are you talking about? When have you seen a man? They just go, oh, he learned the word perv, so now he's just saying random stuff. That's all I have to say about that. That's all I have to say about that. Okay. The next book that I read was Heaven by Mieko Kawakami. This book is told in the voice of a 14-year-old student who is subjected to relentless torment for having a lazy eye. Instead of resisting, the boy chooses to suffer in complete resignation. The only person who understands what he is going through is a female classmate who suffers similar treatment at the hands of her tormentors. These raw and realistic portrayals of bullying are counterbalanced by textured exposition of the philosophical and religious debates concerning violence, to which the weak are subjected. It's a very short book, less than 200 pages, so I think that might classify it as a novella. It's a very easy read in terms of language, but it is a hard read in terms of subject matter. It's literally about kids being bullied. It's very sad. And these bullies are not like your standard run-of-the-mill bullies. I think they're like super bullies. Like, they're actually truthfully really genuinely devoid of souls. So keep that in mind. The next book that I read was Babel by R.F. Kuang. Babel is about a young boy named Robin who grew up in Canton, and at the time it was completely ridden with disease. I want to say the disease was cholera. I did start this book in October, okay? This book took me probably 4 or 5 months to finish. And let me give a disclaimer. Well, actually, let me give a disclaimer to my disclaimer. It doesn't matter how long it takes you to finish a book. You could read Babel in 9 months for all I care. But I do want to clarify that the reason it took me so long to read this book is because I was buddy reading it with friends and with my boyfriend, and just with all of our schedules and trying to like not get too ahead of each other. It took us a while. And also, mind you, people fell off. At the end, it was only me and my boyfriend who finished the book. My other friends did not join us in finishing the book. So take that as you will. I do believe that this is, I don't want to say like an acquired taste, but there are just people who aren't going to like this. It's a fantasy historical fiction book, but I think a lot of people think it's a fantasy historical fiction book, but really it's a historical fiction fantasy book. If you're picking up what I'm laying down. Heavy on the history, lighter on the fantasy. But the fantasy is there. But anyway, let me finish telling you what it's about. So it's about this young Chinese boy named Robin. His whole family gets like cholera or something, and they all die. He, like, as he's been growing up, he's been mysteriously getting these books mailed to him, even though like they're broke as hell. So who's buying these books in English? And also he has a tutor, and nobody really talks about why this woman is just in his house teaching him English and stuff. But yeah, they don't ask no questions. Like, he just keeps reading the books. His whole family has died, and he's just kind of like hanging out in the house, sad, with his mom's dead body. So this weird ass Englishman walks in, and he's got like a silver bar, and it's magical, and he uses the bar to heal Robin, and he's also like, okay, you're coming with me. And mind you, this man, I don't remember if you were told this at the very beginning or if you figure it out like shortly after. I mean, use your context clues, babe. This man is the one who's been sending him the books and provided the tutor to him. So this man brings him back to England. He basically adopts him, and he continues to have him tutored up until the point where he sends him away to Oxford to specifically study at a place called Babel within the School of Oxford. Babel is basically like this translation institute, and there is a magic system in this book, as I mentioned, but like I said, the history is the foreground and the magic is like kind of the basis of how the novel continues, but the history is the most important. So the magic system works as such. Basically, when you're translating words from one language to another, there's never going to be a perfect translation. There's always something, whether it's like actual meaning or kind of like the connotation or the feeling, just basically there's something, like there are things that you just can't perfectly translate. You can say that this means this and that means that, but it's never going to mean the exact same that it does to the culture of the people who you're translating it from. This magic system, basically, when you take two words that you're translating and there's something that is then lost in translation, that thing that is lost in translation can then be manifested when you have these silver bars that have the two initial words on them. Does that make sense? Did I explain that well? So this book is dark academia, there's some found family, there's betrayal, there's imperialism. I really enjoyed this book. There were things about it for me personally, and honestly it could have been the way that I read the book, because it took me 5 months to read the book. Maybe under better reading conditions, this book would have been a 5-star for me, but it was more like a 4.5. So I couldn't give it a 5-star. So on Goodreads, it's a 4-star, but it is an amazing book, and it made me cry, it made me bawl my eyes out, but you should read it, I think. Personally, I would recommend it. Okay, so the next book that I read is Night Shift by Kiari Ladner. So the book follows a woman named Maggie, like I said, in 1990s in London, and she works a job, she has a boyfriend, blah, 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 blah. She's kind of just going through the motions. She starts having this obsession that she doesn't really understand with one of her coworkers named Sabine. Sabine is like an otherworldly model type, kind of like model off-duty vibes, but like not mean girl. Like everyone likes her, but at the same time she's not like in your face super nice. Like she's like a subdued personality, but no one thinks of her like as a bitch. Like they're kind of like, oh yeah, Sabine's just like that girl. So that's basically it. Sabine is that girl. Maggie is finding herself very concerned with Sabine and what she's doing and what she's like and her life. So when Sabine doesn't show up for work, Maggie realizes that she switched to a different job on the night shift. And instead of just being like, oh, okay, Maggie's like, okay, I'm gonna follow her. And she decides to also apply for this job that Sabine has so that she can be closer to her. So as anyone can imagine, working overnight, getting off at like 7 a.m. is completely disruptive to kind of your current lifestyle. So Maggie has to adjust and start living this new lifestyle, living at night with Sabine. If you're interested in that, I would say give it a read. This is definitely a literary fiction book that is more of like, I wouldn't say that this is like all vibes, no plot, because there's plot and it does have a sense of a character study, but not in the way that at the end you feel like there's any moral growth. But if you just like being in the mind of like someone a little unhinged, then I'd say go for it. The next book is Paper Doll, which is Dylan Mulvaney's memoir, and I rated this 2.75, which is rounded up to 3 stars for Goodreads. And this was the first arc that I received that I finished and gave a review to. I approached this audiobook without much prior knowledge of Dylan Mulvaney. I had never seen her TikToks and knew little about her beyond what she calls Beergate. Even as someone unfamiliar with her, this memoir offered plenty of insight into her personality and kept me interested without having to be a fan. So first I'll start with things that I did not like about the book. So the audiobook and by proxy, Dylan's persona can best be described as the embodiment of cringe millennial theater kid. This vibe is amplified through the audio format, complete with singing and the use of tee-hee within the first 5 minutes, which I'm sorry, but like for me, that's just so cringe. It's just really hard for me. Like, listen, I can read something that's cringy, but hearing someone go tee-hee, like, I'm over it. Like, I can't. So as someone who is not a fan of musicals, like I'm just not a musical person, the idea of somebody busting out into song in the middle of a conversation just like cringes me out. Like it gives me the ick. I can't do it. So this book about someone who is like a theater kid was never going to fully be my jam. And mind you, like I said, I did not know much about her aside from Beergate. So I had no idea that she was a theater kid. So like, when you start hanging out with someone new and you're like telling them things from your life, and then finally you're like, you know what? Actually, I'm gonna drop some crazy shit onto you. That's kind of what this felt like. It kind of just felt like maybe we had hung out a few times and she was like, you want to hear something crazy? And like, yes, in a way that is what a memoir is someone just telling you about their life. I felt like this whole memoir was a 50-part story time on TikTok more than a memoir, I really just felt like she's still a little too early in her career to have the depth needed for a compelling memoir. Several times she seemed on the verge of saying something profound, but then never quite got there. So here are the things that I did like. So it was really refreshing to hear Dylan's unique perspective on being trans. She brought up aspects of her trans identity in ways that I personally hadn't considered before. I also appreciated her self-awareness and acknowledging that she was thrust into the spotlight without necessarily being the most qualified to speak on queer activism. There are certainly others who are more educated on the topic. She also acknowledges how she is incredibly privileged via her TikTok to have such ease of access to gender-affirming care so early into her transition. No one person can represent the entire trans or queer experience, and Dylan does acknowledge that truth. But, as I said, I do feel like it was kind of surface level in some of those acknowledgments. The last book that I finished in March was The Atlas Six by Olive E. Blake. This is a book series that I started in March because I wanted to get myself moving more. So I chose a audiobook that I could listen to when I was like going on walks or jogs. I was gonna say running, but like I'm not running. I mostly enjoyed this book. I was kind of annoyed with like the second to last and last chapter. I enjoyed it enough to pick up the second book, which I am going to read, but I'm kind of at a point right now where I'm like, I don't know if I'll read the whole series. You have a chance to show me in the second book that I should keep reading or listening to this, but I'm not making any promises. It's like a month later and I have officially DNF'd the series. I did not finish book 2. I genuinely could not get past it. Like, maybe 2 or 3 chapters in and I was done. Just not worth it. When I first started listening to this, I said something a little crazy to my boyfriend, and I do take it back, but I have no problem admitting when I'm wrong, so I still will share what I said. I said to my boyfriend, I think it's like Babel if R.F. Kuang had nothing of importance to say. That's rude. That's really mean. And I do take it back. I don't think it's like a dark academia about nothing. It is about something. It is in similar ways to Babel, critiquing academic superiority, and then there are like very clear through lines for critiques on capitalism and consumerism and just generally like labor. So I do take back what I said, Olive E. Blake. I'm very sorry. I do think that Atlas Six does have something to say. Let's start with books that I bought at actual bookstores. Man, that stack is higher than I remember. Oh my god, okay, I forgot a bit. Give me a second, I forgot 3 books. Okay, I obviously just walked in with more than 3 books. I don't want to hear about it, okay? So first, like I said, we have books that I bought at bookstores. So the first book that I have is She's Always Hungry by Eliza Clark. For me in this house, we will serve Eliza Clark, period. I haven't gotten the chance to read this yet. This is Eliza Clark's horror short story collection. I have, of course, read Boy Parts and Penance by her, and they were both 5-star reads for me for 2024. I do have conflicting feelings about short stories, so I'm not really sure how I'm gonna feel about this, but I feel like I'm gonna love it. If you follow me on Book Talk, you might know that I have already had a night terror dream about this book, even though I've not read it. I was just making shit up, but it was in my head it was affiliated with this book. So if that lets you know just my thoughts about Eliza Clark, she's already permeated my brain with this book and I've not even read it yet. Next we have Sour Heart by Jenny Zhang. I got this book for an upcoming video that I'm going to be doing, which is a Mitski reading vlog, so reading Mitski's favorite books, and this is one of them. I bought this book specifically because I felt like of the books, this is one that I actually really will like. Not to say that I won't like the other ones. There were at least 2 more on the list that I feel like will be my personal style, but I saw it when I was out and I decided why not, so I did purchase this one. Next I got Heaven by Mieko Kawakami. This is a work of translated fiction and I don't know if it would be considered a novella. It's really short, 200 something pages, less than that, 175, so it's very quick, very easy read in the sense of language. However, it's not the easiest read in terms of subject matter, so it has to do with bullying and it's a coming of age story. Check trigger warnings on this one if you're interested in it, but I did this is one that I did actually read in the quarter that I bought it. I'm so proud of myself. Pat myself on the back. But I think I rated this 3 stars on Goodreads because you can only do 3 stars. I think if I was doing 0.5s, 0.75s, that kind of thing, I'd probably give it a 3.5. The next book that I got is Slaughterhouse 5 by Kurt Vonnegut, and this book, of course, I have been interested in picking it up, but I will say again that I was heavily swayed to buy it because I had a video idea. I'm pretty sure Kurt Vonnegut is from my home state, and for that reason, the town that I live in hosts a music and arts festival every year in his honor. I was thinking in anticipation for the event this year that I should read a few of his books and make a reading vlog about it. So this is the first one that I got. I bought this book at a bookstore that mostly sells new books, but they did have a shelf for used books, and those books were all available at a sliding scale, so you could pay what you want. Truthfully, I don't remember what I ended up paying for this, but this is The Raw Pearl by Pearl Bailey. This is an autobiography about the singer Pearl Bailey, and it's signed. I don't know if you can see that. Hold on. In the front page, I know this is going to be blasphemous to say, but in the front page, she's doing the Hosier hands. Do you know what I'm talking about? Hosier hands. And also, if you don't like the way that I say Hosier, if you say it some other way, I really don't care, and I'm not changing that. The next book that I have is Good Girl by Aria Aber, and this is a book that comes highly reviewed, so I am, really interested to read this. And then the last book that I bought from a bookstore is The Lamb by Lucy Rose. This is a very anticipated book for me. I know, I just got swept up into the TikTok hype, but I don't care. Now, the next category of books that we're going to go over are books that I was gifted. So I did a wee bit of a book swap. The first book I got was Into the Water by Paula Hawkins, and this is the same author who wrote The Girl on the Train. The Girl on the Train is another book that I already own and I haven't read, but I know that it's kind of popular. The next book that I got was Wahala by Nikki May. All I know is that this book follows a small friend group of Nigerian girls, and I think it's literary fiction, so I'm excited for that. And the last book that I got from my friend, I do want to give a little bit of a disclaimer. This is an author that personally I would not buy their books firsthand or get them from Libby or, do anything that is supporting the author. But again, I was given this secondhand from someone who already had it in their library. I got Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. The next set of books that I have are books that I bought from my public library. So my library does a book sale 2 times a year, I believe, in the spring and in the fall, and we just had our spring sale, and I'm so excited because I got a lot of really good books. I did also get books from the fall sale last year, and have I read any of those? No. I know, it's so horrible. It's so horrible. I'm reading, I'm just not reading a lot of physical books right now. I did make a TBR jar though with the goal of reading more books that I already own, and the first time that I picked out a book, it was Night Shift by Kiari Ladner. So the TBR jar is working. I just need to continue doing that throughout the year. The first book that I got from my library sale is Pieces by Helen Oyeyemi. I'm pretty sure that this is literary fiction of some sort. It centers around a romance, but I don't think it's technically like a romance book, and I recognize the author's name. Don't know how or where from, but that's what grabbed my attention. And truthfully, if you've never been to a library sale, sometimes that's the best that you can go based off of. There are hundreds of books around and dozens of people, and you don't have time. And in my library, you don't have the service to be pulling out Goodreads and really finding out the lowdown on the books. So you really do just have to go based off vibes and the dust jacket, and that's it. The next library sale book was Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng, and this is a book that the TV show with Reese Witherspoon and Kerry Washington was based off of. And I didn't even know that it was based off of a book until I started watching the show, and I watched the show a few months ago, and for the most part, I enjoyed it. Like, I enjoyed the story, I was captivated and whatnot, so I decided why not get the book, especially once again at the library book sale where it was $1.50. The next book that I got was Nice Girls by Katherine Dang, and this is a book once again with the library sales. We're just going loosely based off vibes. One, it seems like a thriller that I would enjoy, and two, Katherine Dang is an author that has a book coming out in 2025, and I'm super interested in that book, but I never heard of this one, so I was like, why not familiarize myself with her writing style before I go into the book that I'm very interested in, which is What Hunger, and I also mentioned it in my last video. The next book that I got from my library was Pet by Akwaeke Emezi, and Akwaeke Emezi is an author that I don't know how, but I haven't actually read one of their books. I've started two, I believe. I think I started Bitter and I started Little Rot. Bitter, I think I ran out of time to read it from Libby, and then Little Rot, I was reading a few things at once, and it was coming due at my library, and I think I kept hearing things about it being a heavy read, and I think when I was reading other things, I had multiple heavy reads at the same time, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do that to myself mentally. Both of those books lapsed on their holds. So now I own one. It's not going to lapse on a hold. This one, hopefully, not hopefully, because I still do want to read Little Rot and everything. But this one is technically YA, so maybe it won't be as heavy of a read. That won't have to be a deterrent. I won't have to time it out with my mental capacity for things. Next, I got a book called American Dirt by Janine Cummins. Honestly, I picked this book up because there's a blurb on the front that calls it Grapes of Wrath for Our Times. Dawn Winslow said that. I'm assuming that's an author. I don't know who it is. Sorry if that's blasphemous, but truthfully, it just caught my attention because I've really been into the idea of 2020's reimaginings of classic books. So that's why it grabbed my attention. And truthfully, now that I say that, I don't even know if I don't think this book was written in the 2020s. I think it was the 2010s. But regardless, I'm just saying newer reimaginings of the classics. Next, I got The 100 Secret Senses by Amy Tan, and Amy Tan, of course, is a classic. So this book, based off the dust jacket, from what I remember when I went to the library sale a week and a half ago, I'm pretty sure there was some family saga, some magical realism vibes, and just that alone was enough to be why not? And then the last book that I got from my library book sale was Red Pill by Hari Kunzru. So yeah, I'm a little scared about this book, but based off the vibes from the dust jacket, I think that it's kind of exploring incel culture in a fictional sense. If I remember, once again, this was a week and a half ago, and I was just zooming through the library sale. So if I'm wrong on the details, sue me. But I think it's an author who wrote a book or is communicating in online spaces and maybe is like accidentally breeding a community of incels, and then like him reconciling with that. I don't know, but it seemed interesting. Oh my god. So that was 17 books that I have gained in 3 months. That does seem excessive, I'm aware. However, once again, I lost some books as well, purposefully. I gifted some books, got rid of some that I was no longer, that were no longer serving me. I'm gonna turn this off and try to do some math and figure out how much I've spent on the 17 books that I bought this year. While I'm doing that, you go in the comments and make a guess. All right, I have the actual real number of how much money I spent on 17, actually 18, because I got a book for my boyfriend and I didn't include that. The total is $185.75 divided by 18. So I spent $10.31 per book, basically. And I know that the math on that really isn't right, because some of these books were gifted to me, but I'm just thinking about like the overall essence of how much money went out and how many books came in. Thank you so much for watching